Julian, excited to be talking to you. You're the CEO and founder of SuperOrdinary, a company that works very closely with helping brands go enter the Chinese market, among a lot of other services. You also work very closely with social commerce, with live shopping, and try to make that even more public and popular in the US than it already is. You started SuperOrdinary back in 2018, which coincided almost perfectly with TikTok launching in the US. Was that pure coincidence, or did you base it off of the launch of TikTok in the US?
First of all, Moritz, thanks for having me on your podcast. It's lovely to meet you. I love listening to your previous podcast, so I'm very happy to be here.
Cool. Happy to hear.
So where shall I start? Just a quick 2-second background on myself. So my career was always about thinking about the big macro trends and how do we express that view, whether it's in the equity markets or through investing in a company. And back in 2018, when I was in Hong Kong, I used to look across to China and think about like what's going on in the creator economy over there. When you arrived in Shanghai, everyone was on their phones, on the bridges, selling products. There were like hundreds of people with ring lights standing there selling products. And we all knew what was happening with QVC in America, but didn't know what was going on in China. So I really spent a lot of time just learning about what was going on. And I saw that not only was it the social commerce an interesting seismic change in the way that people were purchasing products, it was actually very entertaining. So when I started in 2018, the market was on a roar, and it was just going from bottom left to top right. And I think anyone could make money back in those days. But what happened was when COVID occurred, consumer confidence really came down a lot, and people's confidence in purchasing products went down a lot. So our business actually retracted a lot. And during COVID, I actually moved to the US. And this is when I started SuperOrdinary in America. But at the time, TikTok Shops was not around. I was kind of like twiddling my thumbs trying to figure out what to do. But I knew that this wave was coming, so I had to be very patient.
It's funny that you mention the people recording on the bridges with ring lights, doing live shopping streams already back then, because I've seen those videos in the last couple of years popping up on social media here, but I always assumed that that was very recent footage. It never occurred to me that that might have been already 10 years ago. So they were doing it already back then on that scale.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about what this did for the Chinese economy, it basically turned everyone into a seller, meaning that anyone could decide what product to sell. If you wanted to sell, I don't know, anything from beauty products to seafood, you could get it, you could make a video about it and live stream it, and people would watch it and purchase it. One-click checkout. It wasn't you're clicking and then going to a Shopify site and then putting in your credit card details and verifying it. It was one click and boom, tomorrow it's at your house, or even that afternoon. So that kind of efficiency was something that still today we don't have in America. So I believe that there's a massive opportunity.
Already back then, you spotted that opportunity and were fairly certain, certain enough to base a company off of it, that will eventually make it to the US. That takes a lot of conviction.
When you make decisions on information, sometimes you don't have 100% information. So I generally think that you need to be making decisions on, 50 to 60% information. But I really believe that the way that people were discovering products through entertainment was something that wasn't going to change. And I still believe today, even with ChatGPT and this whole idea of agentic commerce, where people would relinquish the responsibility to an agent to go out and buy their clothes and food and things like that, I still think we're very, very far away from that. I think if you take all of those pleasures away, what do you have left? And I think, to me, it's very important that social commerce is all about entertainment, because you get entertained and that's why you purchase.
Yeah, I totally agree there with you. I think with the rise of AI, social commerce, if anything, will become even more popular and important because people crave that human touch. They crave that connection with the seller or the creator. And we're going to get more into that. But if we linger a little bit more on your origin story and how you got to run Super Ordinary and scale it to the huge success that it is now. Um, how did that actually work at the beginning? Because I would imagine you had a little bit of a chicken and egg problem where on the one hand you needed to create demand for your services in the US, which maybe wasn't initially there. And then on the other hand, you also had to build up connections in Asia. You had to build the network of affiliates that eventually you would use to then help brands to enter the Chinese market. Can you walk me through how you tackled that problem?
Yeah. So when I moved to Shanghai, I didn't know anyone there. I literally moved into a hotel and I was looking at my notepad, like, how am I going to build a company in a country that I'm unfamiliar with? I don't speak the language. I have no relationships with anyone here. So the first thing I did was I actually went to a recruitment office and said, I'm looking to hire a COO, someone who could be, had experience in operating in this market. And what I was looking for was very difficult to find because it was such a new industry. So eventually I found someone who not only was bilingual, but, could see the world that I was dreaming of, especially from a company side. And eventually, we started the business, and we didn't have any brands to bring into China. So I got on the plane and I flew to America, and I just went door knocking on brands. And previously to starting Super Ordinary, I had a beauty business, so I had a few relationships, and I found a company or two brands that were willing to give me a chance. And then we started building the brands, and luckily, we did the right things. We worked with a brand called Pharmacy, which we still manage today, which I'm very proud of. It's one of the largest skincare brands in China, and we've been able to build it from zero to where it is today. And we're very, very excited that we've been instrumental in building that brand. So building the team before COVID, the team was over 300 people in Shanghai. And unfortunately, during COVID, we had to furlough many of our employees, and now we're, just sub 200 employees there, but still a very large team. And I think, when you're building a business internationally, you have to be there. You have to, think local. You have to build a business understanding the culture. My father's from Hong Kong originally, so I do consider myself Chinese by ethnicity. And I really learned a lot about how to work with different cultures, and I think that was really a big benefit for me. The culture there is very different. People work 6 days a week, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And, they've got this incredible team must win attitude, which I think is sometimes lost here in the US. And it's really exciting to see how, the team, celebrates the wins together. So once we started the business, the business grew very quickly. And now the business is not as big as it was before COVID because, China's been going through a slow bounce back. But ultimately, I'm extremely bullish on China. I think we've got a huge win in our sales from a macroeconomic point of view, because I think the Chinese market was running a huge trade surplus. They're going to be exporting AI products for the next gazillion years, and really going to be a winner in this race. So I think there's going to be an opportunity for the underlying consumer to benefit and purchase more products, whether it's from the West or domestically.
Yeah, and I could imagine that with your unique background, where you have family ties to that part of the world, but at the same time know the US very well, you were sort of uniquely positioned to build the company that now you're running. Even though obviously being an entrepreneur, you had to face a lot of struggles along the way. And I would imagine that COVID was one of the bigger ones, if not the biggest one. how difficult was that to navigate, especially at the beginning when all the countries shut down, and you said it's so important to have these very close ties where probably you were going to China a lot before COVID hit, and then suddenly you were grounded in the US. How did that look like?
I think it was, we were very lucky that we had a very strong team in China, so that despite not being there, there was an ability to continue and run the business as we normally would. I think we had to react extremely quickly to our brand partners and tell them, what we thought would happen. If you remember, the US market continued to go from strength to strength domestically on e-commerce. More people were purchasing products online than ever before because of COVID. But in China, things slowed down dramatically. So you had a tale of two cities where brands were doing very well in the US, but not so well in China. So we had to really manage that expectation with brands. So brands who were expecting to do more sales in China, we had to, lower their expectations. And it was very difficult because we had a commitment to them to help grow them. And, a lot of brands traditionally would think, oh, China's got this much population. It's, 4 times the US. That's why we should be doing 4 times more. And in fact, that's never the right answer. The consumer is very educated. They, marketing campaigns that work in the US don't work in China. And it's a very different way to sell a product to a consumer there. So I think code was a struggle for most people. But I think what we managed to do well was whilst China was like almost mothballing the business there, the US business grew dramatically. So we managed to almost have a hedge.
Right. And I mean, now it's kind of interesting how things are going the other direction, where previously it used to be for Western brands that the Chinese market was this black box, a huge unknown, and people like you were the ones that kind of needed to help them get a foot in the door there and get things moving. Whereas now we have sort of the same situation in the US, where a lot of people are lost with social commerce. So again, you're in a very unique position to help people, and you positioned yourself quite well there. How happy were you in 2023 when TikTok Shop launched in the US, and you probably foresaw that, but then it finally happened? Were you
Yeah.
celebrating?
I mean,
How did that look like?
I was always asked by my peers and some investors, like, you should be running a live streaming business in the US. You know what to do. You know the techniques. You've seen the roadmap. And I think the challenge I had back in 2020 to 21, 22 was there was no real platform that really did it. There was obviously there's a platform called Whatnot that's doing exceptionally well, but there wasn't anything outside of that really canvassed a large population. There were all these like
Right.
individual apps that came around, like Flip and Network, and none of them really took off. And I think the challenge they had was they were trying to drive people to join their app, but there was no real reason to be on that app every single day. So when TikTok Shops originally started, and TikTok had been around through Musically, it was exciting. One of our employees was the very first person in America to sell the first product on TikTok Shops. So we have that that story that always goes down the hallways about that's where Super Ordinary in the US started. But now it's got to the point that we were TikTok Shop's partner of the year last year for beauty, and we continue to really scale our expertise. And now we've have built a very big international team here in Los Angeles. And the reason we built it here in Los Angeles is that it's very well set up for the infrastructure around the creator economy. And what we have now is, we have 15 studios here in LA. We're expanding. We're hiring
Wow.
a lot of people, and we're managing many, many brands. Everything from fragrances to skincare to beauty to clothing. We just signed with H&M, very close to where you're living right now in Stockholm. And also Disney. So we're their exclusive partner on TikTok, and we're really excited because I think that the one thing I know that other people don't is that we're just at the very beginning of the trend. We're not halfway through, we're not three-quarters way through, we're at the very beginning. So we think that there's a really big opportunity to really go after categories which we believe will live on TikTok in the future. We believe that vertical format content is the way forward. Obviously, you'll watch it in your glasses at some point, but we think there's a huge opportunity as media shifts. And being in LA, it's really exciting because we're right at the epicenter of a lot of these changes.
I could imagine. Actually, can you speak a little bit to that? I've been to LA before, but just as a tourist. I would imagine that it is, at least in the Western world, the epicenter for the creator economy. How do you notice that in everyday life, besides the obvious fact that a lot of creators live there? Do you feel that buzz of social commerce and live shopping building? Or is it still something that is so niche that not enough people are aware of it?
I think in live shopping specifically, we're seeing that really come into its own in 25. I think 2026, that's where we're making a big bet, that live shopping is really going to become a big opportunity. It's again following the Chinese playbook where affiliate sales first was the main driver for sales, and then live streaming became a big opportunity. I think in America, we haven't had the big introduction of the big live streamers like we have in China, like Austin Lee and the others that are, are
Right.
doing billions in sales. But I think there's an opportunity to build that. I think in LA, there is this opportunity to, be self-sufficient as a creator because there are so many different revenue streams that you can create as a creator these days, whether it's running your own channel, your TikTok, your Substack, your monetization platforms. There's so many things you can do. So I think that that universe of opportunities is really alive and well. I think the trend that we've seen recently is that YouTube as an alternative to traditional TV is obviously we're seeing that that is the new TV and it's connected TV and everyone's watching there. I think that's something that I believe is true. However, there is a much bigger opportunity to make money from other platforms too. YouTube as wonderful as it is, you only get paid through AdSense and some one-off brand deals, and a lot of
Right.
creators can't make a sufficient living from that. However, we think there's opportunities to work with these creators and come into the super ordinary ecosystem where we can empower them to help them sell products. We've started to do that with some creators, and we're doing a lot of the big mega lives and selling, close to $1 million a live stream. And now we're making it entertaining. So we're thinking of ways to work with creators in different respects in different categories. And I think that there is a big shift away from traditional entertainment. So the Los Angeles unfortunately has lost a lot of Hollywood's revenue and dollars because the movie industry and production assets have declined substantially. So you've seen like the traditional a lot of activity with Paramount and Sony and Warner Brothers. Not a day goes by till you learn something new, and there's been this growth of the streamers, whether it's Netflix or Paramount Plus and Hulu and all these other and there's a lot of war going on between all these players. So it's very exciting to watch this unravel because now that TikTok's going to be acquired by the Ellison family, there could be really big opportunities in social commerce.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you had a really strong point there that what I personally find lacking so far in a lot of the live shopping streams is that it's not entertaining enough on the one hand, and people don't seem skilled enough in actual sales to bring in the numbers that we see in China. Obviously, there are other factors like the huge population in China, the
Yeah.
all in one time zone obviously helps, whereas US is much more fragmented. But I do feel like there's a huge missed opportunity just because you're not copying what already works in other parts of the world. And I think there's just a lack of knowledge for a lot of people who are already in that field, but might not know what works well in China. So someone like you is obviously aware of what works in Asia and is able to bring that to the US.
Yeah, I think there's like I said, I think in the next couple of years, we shouldn't be looking what's happening in the next month, 2 months, but what's it going to look like in 5 years? I really do believe that I think people are getting ahead of themselves and thinking that AI is really going to solve the shopping dilemma. Because I think as humans, we really should enjoy a few things that really make sense. We're going to have a lot more time on our hands. If we have a lot more time on our hands because less work days, there's going to be more content to consume. That content has to be entertaining. We're not going to sit around and watch AI videos all day long. It's really going to be stuff that feels real to us. I think humanity is really at a challenge when we're not watching real things. So I think that live streaming is one way to prove that it's not a fake robot or an AI robot that's talking to you and you can interact. So I think there's a lot to be said about where the world's going. And if we believe in that view, then I think, shopping is going to be a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. And it's not just products, it's services, it's booking restaurants and hotels and travel. So there's a lot of other adjacencies that I'm excited about.
I personally follow the social commerce boom quite closely, and I'm really fascinated by all the different parts of how that is playing out. You have agencies popping up left and right, doing social commerce and live shopping. But then, of course, you have the affiliate space that is exploding on TikTok. And then you also have a lot of SaaS tools that are being rolled out to support that space. So I think it's very interesting that you with SuperOrdinary are one of the largest players in that space and probably have more resources in terms of manpower, but then also just in terms of money to fund really large bets. Where do you place those bets? You mentioned already that you have 15 studios where you're doing live shopping. What are other large bets that maybe smaller players are just not able to compete with right now?
So one of my passion projects is that I really love content and I love building entertaining content that, you know, and I always think that content has to win first, because if it's boring content, it doesn't matter what you're selling, no one's going to pay attention to it. So this year we've been investing in building content studios, meaning that we really think carefully, like really, really carefully, like what can we create to get a consumer to watch the content and then eventually buy a product. So we've gone more upstream into the creative side, and we've worked with brands to really help them get more awareness. So if you think about a traditional makeup brand, their opportunity to sell was on Amazon, was on TikTok. And traditionally they would go to like some big influencer and pay them a lot of money, and they'll get maybe 2 posts and then hopefully they'll make some sales. But that's changed. I think the thing, what I think about social media is not about marketing, it's about monetization now. So if you think about, we're marketing to sell products, and we in real time. How do we create content? So recently we did a series with a brand called Laneige. It's a Korean skincare brand. We managed to take it from number 36 in America to number 2 in earned media value, that they call it EMV. And we did that in less than 30 days. And we did that because we built a content series with one of our creators. We got over 250 million views of that piece of content. Where, you think about F1 movie, you got 200 million views. So, it's really obviously not apples to apples, but just in a measure of eyeballs. And for a brand to get that much awareness because of the creator economy, it's going to be that much easier for that brand to get more conversion when the person sees that product on the shelf or online. They're going to recognize it, they'll understand it, and eventually purchase it. So I think we think deeply about that. I think that's something that I really want to place more bets on. I think the content demand for content is going to, get bigger and bigger over the next, in our lifetime. And really to partner with brands to help them do that, because there's lots of brands that sit on the shelf at Walmart, Target, CVS, Audi, and people just don't care about them anymore because they're lost. So, building these brands through entertainment, I know it's a big stretch, but I think it's really exciting for brands of tomorrow.
And do the brands see the writing on the wall? I assume the ones that end up talking to you do, but do you have to do a lot of convincing and showing them what's possible, or do they realize that they missed out so far and they want to reverse that?
I think it's that's a really good question because it is very challenging. I think probably one of the most challenging parts of my job is convincing and educating our partners what the way we think it's going to happen. And often things happen way, way too late. Recently we saw Sephora starting to run an affiliate program on their website, and
Yeah.
empowering their influencers. I mean, this is something they probably should have done 10 years ago. They've got the biggest support staff. So I think the hardest thing for us is educating the brands, because I think traditionally no one wants to take big risks because things are difficult, and when things are going difficult, it's hard to put your hand up and jump. But I do think that the opportunity now in social commerce is that a lot of younger brands can enter the market and take market share, which is one, scary for the big brands, but two, those that don't lean in quickly are going to suffer because if you start really leaning into TikTok Shop in 2 years' time, it may be too late. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of brands were very scared about going into Amazon because the connotation of going to a eBay like type platform, but TikTok's different. There's a reason why there's close to 200 million people on TikTok in America. If your consumer is there, so should you.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And to someone like you and me, that seems obvious, and it's somewhat surprising how long it takes in these big corporations to change their ways of
Yeah.
doing marketing and consumer outreach. Also, on the creator side, though, and I'm sure you talk with a lot of creators and work very closely with them, do they see this shift happening of how monetization went from just pure ads on most likely YouTube to a whole variety of different ways of monetizing not only their own content but really their skill set nowadays, or is that really just something that is so new and so recent that only the 20-year-olds are aware of that?
No, I think a lot of creators are suffering the same fate right now. Their revenues have gone down. I think the last 2 years, the day of doing brand deals on Instagram are really few and far between. Obviously, there are some that are continually doing it, which is great because they can command very high prices. But I think for the majority, which is, it's not the 80-20 rule, it's like probably the 95-5 rule. Most of them aren't making any money, so they have to have a very diverse range of monetization tools. So, part of our business at SuperOrdinary's, we've been building these tools for creators to help them monetize content. We have a platform called Fanfix. Fanfix has been, a 9-figure business for the last couple of years, and the business is one of which where we help them, create content and help them sell content and live stream. And the reason why we've done that is because we believe that the creator economy, creators are going to need diverse range of revenue streams. So I think, the creator economy, they definitely are aware of like what's happening. YouTube ad sales have obviously gone down over time. And there's obviously creator fatigue. So, working with creators, helping them live stream and sell products is something that we're very focused on helping them do. And we've really figured out I call it the special sauce that really makes them successful. And many of them, they can live stream when they're not there. We can help them with hosts and get them to sell products to their audience. The audiences are the super fans, and the super fans will virtually buy him anything that some of these creators create. So I think there's definitely an understanding, I would say, but where it goes from here is that these creators have to really lean into it.
Right. And I would imagine that it's super beneficial for these creators to have such a strong partner like Super Ordinary in their corner, because it used to be 10, 15 years ago, if you were a YouTuber, you most likely were a random person filming with your camera or later with your iPhone in your mom's basement, and you called yourself an influencer. And that can be super challenging for a variety of reasons. But you mentioned the creative fatigue, where you were just burning out because you had to do everything, right? You had to film, and you had to script, and you had to edit, and you had to upload, and you had to promote it. And then you were making very little money, most likely, with it. But you were chasing a dream. But it's cool that nowadays, with all the tools available and with agencies like yours available, there are more and more people who actually can make a very decent living with this.
That's right. I mean, our goal is to be the best partner to the creators and the talent. Whatever they want to do. Like if they want to sell products or monetize content or make a micro drama, we want to be their partners. And also to the brands. I mean, we don't want to ever have a situation where the brand feels like they're not getting a great service. I think the opportunity is, a long-term relationship with these brands. Like some of these brands have been with us now, close to 8 years. Um, and we love working with them. But we want to always be at the cutting edge of helping them solve their problems. So, I think as a lot of these larger companies become a lot smaller, we're almost becoming their arms and their legs to do a lot of the work that requires a lot of investment on our side to help them.
With your focus on the Chinese market, what are trends that you're waiting to catch on in the US, and China being 5 or maybe even more 10 years ahead of the US market? What are some things that you're waiting to plan out in the US?
So some of the things I think about is the trend of sports and
Mhm.
health and wellness. I think that there's a big opportunity globally, not just in the US, and this is nothing that no one knows, is that the trend of longevity, health and wellness, there's going to be enormous amounts of investment. The cost of drugs will continue to decline. A lot of the things that were once a barrier to entry are now going to be open to all. I do believe that the Chinese market is behind the US in sports. I think there's a big, a learning sort of what the US has done, particularly around media rights and how to monetize new IP, whether it's, monetizing a football team or, a pickleball team. The US are the best at it, and live entertainment is something that, the Chinese market will take on in droves. So if you look at any live entertainment, whether it's the Miami tennis or US Open or whatever, it's the golf tournaments, the US are able to monetize these assets incredibly well from brand sponsorships and adjacencies. I think China's behind. I think they're going to catch up extremely fast. I think there's a lot to do here in Chinese sports, whether it's in the sports themselves or media or selling products which are health and wellness products. I think that's just something that I think is going to continue to grow. So I'm excited to work with China and our partners there to build new products in that category. There's multi-billions dollars of opportunities to do in that space. And, coming up to the LA Olympics in 28, I'm sure there's going to be a very tight race for gold medals between China and the US. I think that's a huge opportunity for a company like SuperOrdinary to capitalize on that. And also there's, a ton of other sporting events that we'll continue to see. So, in the next 10 years, that's something that we think very carefully about.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how all these different ways of entertainment now have more and more crossover. and you see that with social media content and people like Mr. Beast working together with like some of the largest sports icons like Ronaldo. But then you also have recently Netflix announced that podcasts will be streamed on their platform.
Absolutely.
So more and more crossover there. And then also you have the creators that are increasingly building their own brands. Like you have creator-led brands pushing really the envelope of what is possible for a creator in terms of monetization. And
Absolutely.
again, you have Mr. Beast there as the front runner. How do you experience these creator-led brands that probably you're already working with, and the creators behind it? Like, are they these incredible entrepreneurs and people that are just so talented that they can do everything, or do they have a team around them that tells them, hey, now it's time to sell chocolate bars? Like, how does that work like in
Yeah.
reality?
I think we've been very close to that trend for the last 7 years, and we've been participating by distributing or investing or innovating with the creators. I have to say that it's traditionally been a more of a challenge than a win. I think we hear about the successes, but we don't hear about the 99% losses out there. I think the creator opportunity to distribute products is a very good opportunity. I think the creators creating their own brand is still a very challenging opportunity because there's a creator has to have a full team around them, and I think ultimately, to be successful in building a brand, you have to have the core pillars that it takes to build that brand. Um, Look, I think there's still so much that can be done working with creators, but you know, obviously we've seen a lot of examples of recent sales of beauty brands, whether it's Fleur or Rhode by Hailey Bieber or Chriselle Lim who did Fleur. But we certainly think that using the creators as the distribution channel for content and products is certainly the way.
And thinking about how that would work like for such a brand to then enter the Chinese market, I would see the immediate problem that most likely those creators are not very well known in China. One, because of the language barrier, but then also because they're most likely active on platforms that are just not available in
That's right.
China.
Yeah.
So how does that look like? How do such creators think about the obvious goal to enter a market with 1.3 billion consumers potentially, when they don't really have a foot there in the door?
I think it's going to take time. There's no shortcut to building an authentic audience and super fans. I think we've seen an incredible amount of super fans around sporting teams, whether it's the NBA or NFL. And there's a lot of these tours that come to the US, sorry, to China. We're seeing Travis Scott is performing it next month. We saw a massive Kanye tour last earlier this year. So I think the West are really recognize that the Chinese audience are excited, but you have to invest. You can't expect that you're sitting in your bedroom live streaming from your bathroom into China expecting to make sales. That just doesn't happen. The Chinese culture really pay respect to people that take the time and effort to learn about their culture. And I think if you do that properly and you really spend time and effort there, I think there's a massive opportunity to build a real fan base. We work with a lot of talent who are from the sporting industries, particularly the NBA, and they go every year, maybe twice a year, but their fan base, are strong, and we've seen examples of them selling all types of products from shoes to bottles of wine, and they can do incredible sales. So I really am excited that I'm hoping that the barriers to travel and making sure that we bring a lot more talent to the Chinese markets is wide open.
I don't know if you follow that, but the streamer iShowSpeed, he was traveling in China during the summer. And I found that just very interesting because it's sort of unique still. And I think it's going to be the way forward if you want to grow your customer and your fan base in China, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he will come up with in the future because he's only 20, as I recently learned, and it's insane that he already has the following that he has.
It's
So
crazy.
insane how you could potentially use that going forward if you still have like 40 years of career in front of you.
Exactly.
Um, if you talk to brands and to creators that want to enter the Chinese market, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you want them to avoid? Like, what are some things that anyone who tries to push into the market and doesn't really understand the market would get wrong that you can help them with?
The first thing we say is just make sure they're set up for success. And what I mean by that is making sure that they have a solid team and infrastructure around them to support the things and the demands that the Chinese market could ask for. So whether it's investing in marketing, a lot of brands would come to us and saying, here's my inventory, you figure it out. But it really does take time and investment, and you can't be too short-sighted. It's all about, when we speak to brands, it's about developing together a 3-year plan to make sure that we're setting very realistic expectations about what to expect. And I think that's where, a lot of brands kind of fall back and say, well, this market's so big, how come you can't do more sales? The trick is, like, a lot of brands come into the market and leave the market because they haven't planned properly. So planning is everything. We typically think brands should be at a certain size before they come in. It depends on the category, but typically, we look for brands that are probably doing close to 50 million of revenue in their domestic market. That just tells us that they're that size, that they probably have 15 to 20 employees from different, different levels and different infrastructure sizes, so they can handle the demands. Because, as probably 50% of the revenue happens in Q4 in China, just because of all the sales events which we're heading into right now. So that's typically what we advise.
Okay, and how much of that strategy then that you're customizing for your clients revolves around live shopping and social commerce in China? How big of a factor is that for you?
I would say about 80%.
Wow. Okay. So that is then based off of the affiliate network that you have and the live shoppers or live streamers that you work with?
100%. We have an incredible network now that allows us to automatically figure out who are the right partners and affiliates to help us grow your brand. Where we have in-house capabilities, that everything from our own design marketing agency, messaging, copywriters. We do everything in-house, and we're able to create entertainment shows around your brand to really show it in a different light. And there are all these different platforms, social platforms, whether it's the Weibos of this world, the Xiaohongshu, which is the little red book, or Taobao, Tmall, Douyin, WeChat, it goes on and on. And then you have all the different video platforms like Bilibili, Kuaishou. So there's a lot to learn. And I think from a brand, it's really important that they understand that they have to release the control to us so that we can do our best to make sure that the brand does what we expect.
I would imagine that that's pretty hard for a lot of brands to simply let go and hope for the best. How does that then look like going forward? Like, do they have KPIs that they give you? Do you check in once a month or even
Yeah,
more frequently with them? How does that look like?
it generally starts very fairly intense, like at least once a week, where we have check-ins, and we share all the data. We're very transparent with what's going on within their category, who are their competitors, what's going on in their pricing, what's wrong with their product. It could be, an opportunity to tweak a formula. It's really a lot of detail. It's not such like running an Amazon storefront. This is something that it's really important that all the comments, the remarks about what your product is fed back to the brand. There have been so many situations where, we've had to change the formula so that it's successful in the Asian market. But that's something that, sets us apart as a partner, because we're not someone that would take anything down the line and just try and hopefully sell it. And unfortunately, sometimes brands don't work out in China, for whatever reason. So, it's just like the US. Not every brand can have a runaway success, as in Europe or anywhere else in the world. So it's really about, from a brand perspective, if they get it right, there's a huge opportunity. But pick a category that's not so crazy competitive. That's obviously, the Chinese market's very, very good at pricing things to perfection, so no one makes any money. So, but anyway.
Okay. Is it still the case that Chinese consumers have interest or a particular passion for Western products, or has that subsided because the Chinese products are on par in terms of quality nowadays as well?
I mean, obviously, there has been a resurgence of the challenging brands. So the local brands have done exceptionally well. And many of the local beauty brands, particularly, are now Chinese, whether it's Proya or Winona. Some of these are examples. But obviously, Western beauty brands and Western fashion brands continue to be, a status symbol to be able to purchase them. But there has definitely been a decoupling from the Western brands to local sourced premium brands.
Okay. And if we look at it from the other direction, how is the demand looking like for American brands to enter the Chinese market, given all the uncertainty around tariffs and Trump and everything that comes with that? Do you see a decline in the interest, or is it just as strong as ever?
No, there's been a decline for sure from COVID days. I think there's always
Mm.
been a difficulty to actually physically get to China. So, a lot of brands just it's gone down their priority list than it once was. Top priority, so probably now priority number 5. I think we are going to see a resurgence of interest to enter the China market, and that's driven because of consumer demand, underlying consumer growth. I think we've hit the bottom in the Chinese market probably 6 months to a year ago. And I think, one of the biggest opportunities is exposing your brand to the local market and really building there. So we're really well set as a company to take advantage of that view. We're really interested in categories to go after that express, consumer growth. It could go into health and wellness, beauty, pet. Categories that generally mimic and correlate highly to a recovering economy.
Okay, that's interesting. My wife is actually Chinese, so I do have some connections to Chinese culture and Chinese economy as well, because I hear a lot about her friends oftentimes struggling right now or in the last couple of years, really, after COVID. The economy was not great for a lot of people there. So it's going to be interesting to see how much the economy will bounce back and if it will ever regain the strength that it had before COVID.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
Um, if we look into the future in terms of social commerce, obviously, but then also the influence of China on Western economy as a whole, do you see any brands or services that currently are already existing in China and booming there that haven't quite made it yet to the US that you think it's just a matter of time until they're gonna be here? I'm thinking of obviously Temu and Shein, alongside with TikTok, were a couple of examples in terms of apps and brands. But then more recently, we have Labubus and everything around that craze. Do you see anything that you think it's just a matter of time until it's gonna make it to the West?
Like my hot take at the moment is I think the manufacturing to consumer model is going to become a big thing in America.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that the new business model will develop such that just-in-time production for new trends directly from the factory to the consumer. If we're able to understand, which is what Shein did with its data collection, about what the current trends are, manufacturers could make small quantities and then sell them through TikTok. So I believe that's an opportunity that if we can work with the right factories, we're able to really take advantage of that trend. So I think that's a big trend that I'm looking forward to.
Okay. And do you see that only going through TikTok, or how else would brands in China collect that kind of information that they certainly need on the customer to then spot those trends?
That's a good question. I think TikTok's obviously the one that best to express that view. However, I think there are going to be, um, because of the tariff, I think the manufacturing will happen here in the US. So it's going to become really important to, you know, figure out ways to distribute. And that's why I think, with our affiliate network, we're able to really accelerate. We can seed 100,000 products a week if we want to our affiliates to get them to post content. So that will be a fun exercise when we partner with the right factory.
For sure. Yeah, I think working with all these individual affiliates actually gives brands the opportunity to then I don't know, micro dose in a way the content and also the products that they want to bring to the consumer and just see what works and what pops off and then double down on that, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Do you see an issue? I mean, we touched on AI. One of the use cases, especially in the creator space now, is to build a lot of AI agents that basically do affiliate work. Do you see a risk there that the affiliate creator world will just be wiped out by AI? Or do you think people will be able to tell the difference and focus on what is real and human?
Yeah, that's a good question. I still believe that people will want to know that it's a real non-AI image talking to you. I think that's something that I firmly believe that we should champion. I don't believe that we should have AI robots, taking across, that sales function. I'm probably in the minor camp on that because a lot of people think that there are efficiencies with that, but I don't want it to happen, but you never know.
Yeah, I would hope that platforms like TikTok and YouTube just force a labeling on creators,
Yeah,
and that the detection is so good that they can actually tell if it's AI
yeah,
generated or not on their end, even though you as a viewer probably can't tell anymore
yeah,
already now, and certainly not in a year or two.
yeah.
But if you have a label that tells you this is an AI bot, then I do think people will be hesitant to buy from it.
That's right.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting how that pans out. I don't think anyone really knows. I mean,
No,
they seem to just be rolling out things like Sora 2 and then see what happens.
exactly. We'll see. Hopefully not.
How big do you think, looking into the future, social commerce and live shopping will become? I talked to a lot of experts on that field already, and pretty much anyone who's very euphoric about this space still says that it's never going to be as big as in China. Do you share that view, or are you even more optimistic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, I'm still a believer of the Chinese path is we're still 4 years behind. I think we will catch up. I think the population obviously dictates that it will never be as big. But from a percentage of commerce, I think at least 30% of the US commerce business can be social commerce. I really believe that entertainment is going to be the biggest driver of social commerce, and that the entertainment and media business in the US is far bigger than the world in terms of what's being created. And I think that's going to be a big driver. So as long as we have the media and entertainment hub here in the US, I think that's going to be, a big coefficient. Obviously, other markets like India generate a lot of media and there's a lot of viewers there, but I still think US will be very strong on the creativity side.
Yeah, also with what TikTok labeled discovery commerce, it's going to be super beneficial if the US and all the creators there are able to own that space. Because I do think we're entering a world where, on the one hand, you have AI dominated shopping where you already know exactly what you want and you just
Yeah,
let your AI bot buy it for you at the best possible price and most conveniently. And then on the other hand, you actually don't know what you want. And that's where I think social commerce and live shopping is going to be huge.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, super exciting. Um, you just out of curiosity, you touched on Xiaohongshu, which was for a brief moment the most downloaded app after TikTok went down for a couple of hours in January.
Yeah.
And I think it created some really beautiful moments. I was actually following this quite closely because, as I mentioned, my wife is Chinese, so she loves Xiaohongshu, and I was
Yeah.
aware of the app way before most other people in the West. And it created this influx of Western people into the medium, and they started communicating with the Chinese people over in China. And it was beautiful to see all these conversations and exchanges happening where before people were separated and probably on both sides fed not always the truth about each other. So I was wondering, with your expertise and insights, do you think we will ever see a social media that actually is available worldwide and will have the possibility to bring people together like we saw for a brief moment there?
I would hope so. I mean, you can only hope. Obviously, there's a lot of things that would have to change politically for that to be of case. But yeah, it would be a dream for like everyone can communicate under one system. So, but it's unfortunately not going to happen right now. But maybe I don't know. Maybe with AI, that there is a with these language models, will allow more open communication and learning from other cultures.
I think it would be very cool to actually have social media take that role that everybody hoped it would have 20 years ago. And now it seems like we're more divided than ever, uh, also due to social media. But it would be very cool to see people
No,
brought together by social media, as it can occasionally.
absolutely, absolutely.
Julian, where can people check out you, your services? Where do you want to redirect people?
Thanks, Morris. So for Super Ordinary, you can we have a website, so it's www.superordinary.co.co. So you can reach out to us there, or on LinkedIn. You can message me directly, and would love to meet with more brands and more creators.
Awesome. Well, Julian, really appreciated you taking the time. It
Not
was
at
a great
all.
conversation.
It's,
Lots of great insights for someone who works on both markets, but then also all the different spaces of the creator economy. And I think both of us are very excited for the future and what's yet to come. Thanks so much
definitely
for taking the time.
not at all, Moritz. It was great meeting you, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I really enjoyed myself.